Coming up on The World Today. Human rights activist and opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi is detained in Myanmar following a military coup. South Africa's first coronavirus vaccine doses arrive by airplane. Plus, the Kremlin describes protesters across the country over the weekend as hooligans and provocateurs. Thanks for joining us on the program, everyone. I'm Akaite Afia here in Lagos. We began in Myanmar, where the military is back in power, having detained human rights activist and opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi, as well as other democratically elected leaders. This move follows a landslide win by Ms. Suu Kyi's party in an election the army claims was marred by fraud.
This is where Aung San Suu Kyi called home. It was also the office for her National League for Democracy party. On a normal day, it would be bustling with activity. Today, it remains quiet, following the military coup. The streets around the compound also appear quiet, although more than half a dozen police vehicles could be spotted along one street in the city. News broke very early Monday morning that Suu Kyi and other senior figures from the ruling party have been detained in a raid. The news was confirmed by the party's spokesperson, Myon Nyont, to foreign media. It came after days of escalating tension between civilian government and the powerful military that stirred fears of a coup in the aftermath of an election the army says was fraudulent. The party has called for people to reject the coup. It was written hours before the actual event. Hours before, the military released a statement debunking foreign embassies for voicing concern over developments in the country. In a statement on Facebook, it said it categorically denies impeding the democratic transition and warned the diplomatic community not to make unwarranted assumptions about the situation. Myanmar's parliament was due to open Monday, but not anymore. The international community has condemned Suu Kyi's arrest. The United States on Sunday warned Myanmar to reverse the course following the reports. A statement from the White House says the U.S. opposes any attempt to alter the outcome of recent elections or impede Myanmar's democratic transition and will take action against those responsible if not reversed. Australia says it's deeply concerned about reports of Suu Kyi's detention. Japan called for dialogue, saying it is important for the concerned parties in the country to resolve the issue peacefully through dialogue in accordance with the democratic process. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he condemns the coup, the unlawful imprisonment of civilians, including Aung San Suu Kyi. Even China hopes that all sides in Myanmar can address differences under constitutional and legal framework. The military has announced the new elections will be held in the country after the end of a one-year state of emergency, following which it will return the state power to the new government. The president's office declared the state of emergency after Suu Kyi was detained. It says during the time, the Union Election Commission will be formed and the parliamentary elections held in November last year will be reviewed. The state power will be handed over to Commander-in-Chief of Defense Services, Min Aung Hlaing. In the meantime, authorities will continue efforts in battling the COVID-19 pandemic and boosting economic recovery.
Meanwhile, the South African government has released a statement condemning the coup in Myanmar and noting with serious concern the detention of State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. They say developments undermine democratic reforms undertaken in Myanmar following the general elections which held on November 8, 2020. The statement says South Africa firmly believes that political differences should be resolved through peaceful and inclusive dialogue, and that it will continue to support the people of Myanmar in their pursuit of democracy, peace, human rights, and rule of law. Joining us now is former Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. He joins us now from Abuja. Ambassador Keshi, thanks for joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I want to begin with the South African government's response to the coup in Myanmar, probably the first from the continent. So tell us, what do you make of African countries having a say in Myanmar's politics while turning a blind eye to the situation in Uganda?
No, I think that there are two different things. In Uganda, the current president, more or less rigged election in order to stay in power. In the case of Myanmar, the opposition, so to say, won the election, and the military that supported a party, or the military party, lost the election. And as a result, the military staged a coup. So there's a difference between a military staging a coup and a president rigging election. But whichever be the case, it's just a sad development that a thriving, slowly thriving democracy, has been brought to a premature end.
Well, as you did say, the military has taken over in Myanmar, and it seems the people, even Aung San Suu Kyi, saw this coming. So what do you think could happen to her from here on, given that there already has been a precedent here with the military government?
Well, I think the challenge here is that there are two issues here that I see. The international community was disappointed with her when she decided, let me use the word, when she decided to go to bed with the military. And I guess she did that as a strategy in the hope of trying to woo the military, to be reasonable and reconciliatory and to allow democracy to survive. But it has turned out to be, unfortunately, a very bad policy. And I believe, and the international community was disappointed with her actions over a number of issues. And now they are caught in a dilemma. So my guess is that they are going to concentrate on the country itself, on the people themselves, and hoping that they can mount pressure on the international community, on the new military regime, to quit the state and hand over power to the civilian administration.
Well, obviously there is a lot of concern here about her safety and about failing democracy in the country. So how would this destabilize the region and furthermore have an impact on global politics?
Well, not much really, except the international community comes together as under the auspices of the United Nations and mount a very strong campaign and possibly impose sanctions against Myanmar. I don't think we are dealing with a very ambitious and very strong military. This is a military that did not concede, not even an inch when it handed over power. It reluctantly handed over power because it was pressurized by the international community. They were not happy. They set up a party of their own, which lost woefully in the last election. And the reaction of their party losing, is that they now decided to step in. When I heard news agencies talking about the coup leader, there was no coup leader. The commander himself, that is now the head of state, was the coup leader. He just stayed behind and asked his boys, go and take over the government, and I will step in. And that's exactly what they did. So it's now left to the international community, hopefully under the United Nations. And thank God that we have a more reasonable administration in Washington. I sincerely hope there can be a concerted effort. Because, once there is a military coup in one part of the world, you can never predict what will happen in another part of the world. And this is why the world must stand as one and knock down the military regime in Myanmar.
All right. Well, Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and do stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's check in on how nations continue to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. beginning in South Africa as the country's first doses of coronavirus vaccine arrived by airplane, offering some relief for health workers who have been stretched during a second wave of infections and are first in line for the shots. President Cyril Ramaphosa and other top officials were at the OR Tambo International Airport to receive the 1 million shots of the AstraZeneca vaccine produced by the Serum Institute of India. Israel says it coordinated the passage of a first shipment of 2,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccinations into the occupied West Bank. The vaccines, which came from the company Moderna Incorporated, will be used by Palestinian Authority's medical team. The AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, which was approved by the European Commission last week, will start arriving in France next week at the latest, according to the French European Affairs Minister Clement Beaune. France has so far approved vaccines developed by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. And finally, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador is reportedly doing very well and is in the process of full recovery from COVID-19, just a few days after he tested positive for the virus. The 67-year-old president, who was a heavy smoker until suffering a major heart attack in 2013, tested positive for the virus on Sunday after returning home from a trip to San Luis Potosí. In other news, Britain has made a formal request to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership on seeking membership of the 11-country deal to open new avenues for post-Brexit trade. Announcing the move, Trade Minister Liz Truss said it would position Britain at the heart of some of the world's fastest-growing economies. The request comes on the first anniversary of Britain's formal departure from the European Union, before a transition period that ended at the end of 2020. Britain is now adapting to the new terms of the trade with the European Union, where frictionless trade has been replaced with a thin agreement that in many cases is making exporting to the EU more complicated and expensive.
We want to help create momentum. Well, this trading bloc of countries is worth £9 trillion. It's a huge part of the world, and it's also growing. We've got some of the fastest growing economies like Mexico and Malaysia, the part of CPTPP. And what this is about more opportunities here in the UK, selling products, whether it's whiskies, cars, computer games, where there's growing demand in those markets. So this is a big opportunity for us, and it's very exciting. We're at the first stage of the process. But unlike the EU, there aren't the strings attached, so there's no court, there's no control over our borders, there's no money to pay in. So this is all about lowering tariffs and increasing opportunities for British businesses and British jobs. Well, we already trade £110 billion with these countries, and these are the fastest growing countries, or some of the fastest growing countries in the world, that are rising up the global league table. So by 2030, they're going to be a more important part of the global economy. And what we want to do is place Britain at the heart of that global growth, selling in things like services and digital where distance matters less. And we're already the second largest services exporter in the world, and this is a huge opportunity for the United Kingdom to reach those fast-growing markets.
Still ahead on the program. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching The World Today on Channels Television. Russia has described people who took part in mass protests across the country against the jailing of opposition politician Alexei Navalny on Sunday as hooligans and provocateurs. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters on a conference call that dialogue with such people would be impossible, a day after Navalny's allies staged protests in Moscow and dozens of cities across Russia. Riot police broke up protests across Russia on Sunday in support of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, detaining more than 5,000 people who had braved the bitter cold and the threat of prosecution to demand he be set free. In a massive show of force, police imposed a sweeping security lockdown in the heart of Moscow, sealing off streets to pedestrians near the Kremlin, closing metro stations, and deploying hundreds of riot police as snow fell. Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai has arrived at the Court of Final Appeal in order to appear in front of an appeals committee hearing over his bail. Lai was initially granted bail of 10 million Hong Kong dollars, or about $1.3 million bond, along with extensive restrictions that included barring him from social media use, which has been in remand since December 31st, when Hong Kong's top court ruled that a judge may have mistakenly decided to release him on bail. He was arrested in August last year when about 200 officers raided the newsroom of his Apple Daily tabloid. Lai has also been charged with fraud related to the lease of a building that houses Apple Daily. He resigned as chairman of Next Digital, the media firm he founded in 1981, and its parent company, Apple Daily. At least 12 people have died, including 7 children, after 2 vessels sank near a port in Colombia's Pacific coast. The causes of the incident are being investigated. The vessel sank on Saturday close to Tumaco, Colombia's second most important Pacific port. Colombia's Navy has announced that units of the Coast Guard and flyovers with planes and helicopters in the area are searching for more survivors. It is still unknown how many people are still missing at sea, but none of those who died were wearing life jackets. Local residents and fishermen have so far managed to save 36 of the passengers. Gunmen have opened fire on activists from El Salvador's main opposition party, killing 2 people, a rare political attack that has shocked one of Latin America's most violent countries. The Farambundo Marti National Liberation Front supporters were returning from a campaign rally when their lorry came under fire by suspects in a car. The attack on the left-wing party came 4 weeks before legislative and municipal elections are due to be held. The attack happened in the center of the capital, San Salvador, on Sunday afternoon local time in front of one of the offices of the FMLN party. 5 other people were injured. Party activists had attended a rally launching the campaign for the mayor of FLMN's candidate, Rogelio Canales. El Salvador's Attorney General, Raul Melara, called the attack serious, saying the electoral battle cannot become a bloodbath. 5 civilians have been killed in a gun battle between militant Islamists and security forces at a hotel in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. Reporters say 4 attackers were also killed. 3 of them were shot while another one blew himself up. Al-Shabaab says it was behind the attack at the Afrique Hotel, which began with a car bomb on Sunday afternoon. The hotel is known to be a gathering place for Somali government officials. The group, which is linked to al-Qaeda, regularly carries out attacks against the government. The first full rehearsal for the annual Spring Festival Gala, the most watched television show in the world, has been held today as preparations for the Lunar New Year's Eve extravaganza get into full swing. The wide cast of performers gathered at a China Media Group studio to make their first official appearance for the 2021 Spring Festival Gala, a mammoth 4-hour-long variety show which features singing, dancing, comedy sketches, magic, acrobatics, and a whole host of other eye-catching cultural elements. The gala, also known as Chunwan, has been broadcast every year since 1983. And is now seen as a huge cultural symbol for the traditional Lunar New Year celebrations in China. This year's event will be broadcast live on February 11. Last year, more than 589 million television viewers tuned in to see the colorful event, while clips of the show also saw over 1 billion views across various social media platforms. A young at heart octogenarian has won the hearts of locals in southwest China's Sichuan province and gained hundreds of thousands of fans online with her energetic spirit and zest for life, which massively defies her 83 years. Known as Grandma Zhang, the popular Chengdu city resident has amassed more than 660,000 followers on social media platforms, with many clips of the lovable grandmother going viral. Her most popular short video has been viewed more than 39 million times online, while many local residents are also keen to meet the senior star in person. With confident eye contact, a graceful smile, fashionable clothing, and a catwalk persona as powerful as any professional model, Zhang has become quite the attraction at her local park. Although now well into her 80s, Zhang still wears high heels and maintains this is the best way for a woman to show her confidence and charm. Zhang also turns heads with her vigorous dance moves, despite only starting to learn how to dance after retiring. Occasionally, when Zhang struts her stuff in the park, many people gather to meet this unlikely hero, while the internet posts also draw in many others who are keen to see this optimistic and lovely elderly woman in action. Well, I guess she proves that you're only as old as you feel. That's all for the world today. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Akaite Afia. Have a great evening and stay safe.